What's up, guys? In this video I'm going to talk about how I mount my Mini Z bodies onto my Wltoys K969 chassis, because I know some of you are curious on how I do that, especially since I use metal clips on the sides compared to the plastic ones that usually come with the K969 and K989. But the problem with the plastic ones is that they're kind of flimsy and they can break easy. I'm just not a fan of those. So I wanted metal, because they're much more sturdy and, better to use for clipping on, plastic hard bodies. So first I'll talk about the side clips, and then eventually I'll talk about the front clip and what I did to make that work, because different bodies use different size little front clips. So I'll talk about how I designed that to, work with different bodies and the reasons why I went with this kind of idea compared to just using the plastic clips that usually come with the cars. So I'll go over all that, and then I'll talk about the bodies, like all the kind of bodies you can fit on this car, the sizes and the styles and whatnot. So yeah, first I'll talk about the motor side. So there's a metal motor mount with the side clip on here that you can usually find online. Like I usually get these off AliExpress. And this is actually pretty good. This one fits very well and works, but this is also for the old style K969, K989. The newer model ones, I don't know, they kind of seem like they have like a heat sink that's here now, and possibly a different type of mount to hold the motor in there. And it looks like they might have got rid of the clip. So if you get one of the newer versions of this car, you might not have a side clip here at all. It might just have a heat sink, and I'm not really sure what you're gonna do to have to fix that. I guess you would have to remove the heat sink and then get a new motor mount that has like a side clip on here. But the only problem with this one is it's designed for the old drive shaft with the little bearing that's in here. So the old drive shaft is about 2 millimeters thick, while the newer ones come with a 3 millimeter thick drive shaft. So it's not designed to fit in here. Well, I mean, you could make it fit through that hole, but you can't put a bearing in here. You have to have a bigger hole for the bearing. So that's something to keep in mind if you're thinking about getting one of these motor mounts, that it might not fit on your new style K969. It will work fine though on an old style K969. So that's why this works for me, because this is my old K969 that I just completely rebuilt from scratch. So that's just something to, to keep in mind. If you're gonna build one from scratch, then you just make sure you get all the older parts that fit, and this carbon fiber chassis I got a long time ago too. Fits normal with all the old school stuff, and I mean it probably would work on the new one too, but for what I'm doing, it worked fine for the old parts, for the old K969 and whatnot. The only thing I had to do was shave a little bit, let's see, get this focus, shave a little bit of material out right here, like almost a millimeter away from there, because the clip was sticking out just like a millimeter too far out this way, so it's pushing the body out a millimeter too far. So I ended up having to grind it away, and I did kind of grind it away too much. So I put a little spacer there, like a little tiny piece of plastic to push it back out. So, I mean, it wasn't a big deal that I went too far, because I can always, like you can see here, just put like a little spacer to kind of bring it back out. And it kind of helps me adjust it that way, this direction, to get the right distance I need for the clips to fit and the bodies to sit correctly. Because these clips are kind of a pain to get them to actually fit perfectly and correctly with the bodies. So what I had to really do was measure how far away the clip was from the edge of the chassis here on the carbon fiber, and it's like a millimeter and a half is how far it needs to be from the edge of the carbon fiber here. It might be different for you on the if you have like a metal aluminum chassis. So you're gonna have to just measure and kind of check things and just put the body on and see if it lines up correctly, and then just go from there. But for me, I needed about a millimeter and a half of distance away, almost 2 millimeters, or even it might even be 2 millimeter. Let me check on both sides here. So yeah, just about 2 millimeter really is what I needed from the clip all the way to the edge of the chassis here. So that's something I figured out over time while I was messing with this thing. And this little metal one can be, you gotta be careful you don't accidentally bend it in a little bit, because you can bend that one, but that's really if you're putting a lot of pressure on it. Otherwise, if you screw it on tight, it shouldn't really move. So just, you know, be careful not to put too much pressure on here because it can still bend. Just kind of bend it back if you do, and just make sure that it's, you know, the same distance here to the back of the clip, and you should be good. So overall, I mean, this clip wasn't that hard to make fit and to work, because the clip actually lands right where it's supposed to on the body and on the chassis to where the wheel wells line up. And the reason why I'm mentioning that is because this one did not line up correctly on this side. Now, I know you've seen these probably, if you've been looking around for metal parts and stuff, you've seen these side battery tray holders with the clip on them. But if you've seen the one that has the little metal like flanges on the sides here that are already like built in with metal flaps, they actually designed that one backwards to where the clip is actually towards the front if you have the little like flaps going this way where it holds in the battery. So they completely just messed up the design of that one. And if you did buy one of those, or you know, you accidentally buy one, if you want it to work and actually have the clip back here where it's supposed to be, where the mount is supposed to be, instead of up front here, because that's what they did. They designed it on accident to where the clip is up front, and that's not how, you know, Mini Z clips work. They're supposed to be both back here. You'll have to actually, you know, grind off the metal little flaps, because they'll be sticking out this way. You know, if you flip it around and have the clip on the correct side in the back here, then you'll have these pieces of metal sticking out here. So you actually have to just cut them off so they're not actually hitting the body or interfering, and then you're just gonna have to go without those, you know, those little flaps, which you don't have to have those. They're just good to keep the battery from shifting back and forth, but you can do other things to, you know, prevent that. I got the version that actually has little carbon fiber little flaps here, these little, you know, flanges, whatever you want to call these things. And so luckily I could just flip them over and then screw them on. So, you know, it didn't matter for me if you put it in whichever direction. So I could turn it around the correct way and then flip these around and then screw them on. And then that's all I needed to do, and that works out. I don't really need the one in the back because I actually used some of the old plastic one to hold the battery from shifting back there. So the only problem is though, maybe when they designed it the other way, where the screw holes line up to mount to the chassis is off by 2 millimeters front to back. So what I had to do, which this was pretty much the most annoying part that I had to do to fix this one, is it's actually like from like say the edge of the corner here, it's like 5 millimeters away when it needs to be like 7 millimeters away to match this one over here, where the clip needs to be like, say if you started from right on this edge, it needs to be like, you know, about I think 7 millimeters, or at least where the screw was or whatever. So there's a 2 millimeter difference to where this one's good on this side, it's where it's supposed to be, but there was a 2 millimeter you know, mess up on the mounting for this thing. So I had to actually shift this whole battery tray forward by 2 millimeters. So what I ended up doing was just grinding away, you know, some carbon fiber here to make the hole, you know, shift over 2 millimeters so I can screw the screw in here. And I kind of messed up a little bit and went too far because I thought I had to go like in towards the chassis too by 1 millimeter or so, but I actually really didn't need to do that. All I needed to do was change it from here to here by 2 millimeters. So that's why everything looks a lot bigger than it should be. So if you're doing this, just pay attention to all that. You might have the same issue I did, you might not. I mean, this is, you know, the problems I ran into. So I just grinded away a lot of material here. Just make sure you leave enough to where the screw can grab on to the carbon fiber. And then also so the head of the screw is not sticking out, you know, below the chassis here. That's why I had to, you know, countersink the screw in as much as I could. And then, you know, I just tightened it down. I just shifted it 2 millimeters forward and then tightened the screw down, and then made sure that I still had the same amount of distance from the edge of the chassis on this side, about 2 millimeters from there, to match, you know, the 2 millimeter distance on this side. So that's how I got these to line up perfectly. So when I put the body on, there's no difference, because if you didn't do that and it was off by 2 millimeter, the front of the body would want to shift over to that side, you know, by a few millimeters, which would throw it off to where this wheel would start rubbing on the wheel well here, and the front would start getting closer to this tire because it would be crooked. It wouldn't be straight. It would be slightly leaning over to the side because that clip is back 2 millimeter, and then it wouldn't line up correctly for the back wheel. So that was the most annoying thing I had to do, was, you know, fixing this whole battery tray to work correctly. Now, you don't have to use the metal mounts. It's just something that I wanted. You can probably still use the old school plastic ones, and then you don't really have to shift You don't have to do any of this weird like do-it-yourself work that I did. You could probably just leave these plastic ones in and these should work okay. I did have issues with these in the beginning, it seemed, but then again, these might be just fine. So on my old chassis, I actually even removed them and made these like 3D prints. So I could actually just use this, and I could actually adjust these up and down. If I had like bodies that seemed like they were too high up, I could bring the body down, the ride height down by bringing this clip down some, like the mounting clip here. So I kind of experimented with some designs there, and they're just kind of bulky. It barely fit here with the motor, and I needed to build it like this because if I didn't, it wouldn't have enough sturdiness to hold the clip in place. They'd break really easy. So that's why I had to make it like a block with like a cutout for it to go into, so it would actually hold. Because if I try to like 3D print something that's this thin and this shape, it'll just break. It's it's weaker than this plastic when it's that thin. So you need to build it really thick. And since it needs to have this like deep opening here, I had to make it like a block to give it enough sturdiness to hold the thing. So that's what I did originally when I first had the car, and it worked. But I'm glad that I shifted away from that and have like some metal mounts now, because I'd much rather have them in metal like this. But it just sucks that I had to do all that extra work to get those to work. But this is what I did originally. You could still, like I said, you could probably still get away with these plastic ones if you want. I'm just showing you what I did. You don't have to do this. You don't have to 3D print them. You can probably just stick with these. Unless you got one of the newer ones though, you're probably not gonna have this clip over here anymore. It might just be a big heat sink that's here. So that's another issue you're gonna have to figure out, get rid of the heat sink and then make your own clip on that side. So, if you have that issue, good luck with that. But that's basically how you would have to adjust these to get the side clips to work out if you want to run any of these mini Z bodies. So let's move on to the front clip here. So the reason why I'm not using like the original plastic ones that come with the car, which some of these lined up right, some of them didn't really line up correctly at first when I was first designing this car. So it's kind of annoying where the ride height was too high or I was pushing the front of the car out too far. So there's a couple things that I was running into issues, but it seems like after I finished designing everything that I could almost get away with using this plastic clip. The reason why I don't is because where these holes mount, they go here and that goes into my suspension, and the way I designed my low-end suspension here is that I don't want to be taking these screws on and off all the time, because this is already very fragile and flimsy as it is. So I want to leave those screws like permanently in place. That's why I have this other little carbon fiber plate that sticks out to mount some clips here. And what I just had to do was basically measure the width, the height, and the length of this clip, and then just mimic that shape with some 3D printed parts. So you can see how it basically is the same thing. So what I would do, let's just show you with these, is I had to build this piece, because this piece would be like for the top plate, and this is for a different car body. So I would design it because it has these little notches here for when it goes into the slot on the front, and the front bumper here. It would just go right on in there like that, and then it would stay just like the plastic ones that came with the cars would do. So I just basically had to redesign something like that to mimic the same thing as the plastic clips that they came with did. And then I designed these little spacers. So I have like some different size ones. So I got them, thicker, like taller, so I can change the ride height in the front. So if the front bumper looked like it was too high up, I could use one of these smaller ones, or one of the bigger ones, like one of the taller ones, depending on if the front bumper was too high or too low. So I just printed out different size ones. So if I was a millimeter too high, a millimeter too low, I would just switch these out to make up for that. Because not every car is the same. If you like my P1 GTR, the one that I have on here right now, is the right height to pretty much match how the plastic clip was. But when I use like the 12C GT3, it is not the same as the P1 GTR. It has a longer like front clip here, and then I needed a slightly taller mount here. So I just stack those together here, and then just have the screw go through with a nut on top to lock them down. So got some lock nuts here, and then the screws just go through this little carbon fiber piece that goes all the way up, and that just locks the clip in place. And then that's how I mount the front clip for the Mini Z bodies. So every car is different. So they might be a lot shorter or a lot longer, higher or lower. So I just made a bunch of different size ones. Like I still got to go back and make some more, but like for different bodies, I have different ones. So like for the Lambo, Corvettes, different McLarens and stuff like that, I just make their own. So if I ever swap them out, I have one of those ready to go. Just throw it together and then put it on this car. Now, as you can tell, this car, I've had to make it extremely low profile to make like McLaren bodies and stuff fit on here. So that's how I got this P1 GTR to fit, because as you can tell, there's just no space in the front end. So I had to, I luckily didn't have to like drill away any of this material here, which I was thinking about doing. But luckily the suspension just sits right in this area without touching by about 1 millimeter. So I have like barely 1 millimeter of space up there, which is crazy. But you can tell there's no room there, and there's definitely no room in the back end too, because the back end slopes down so far. So that's why I had to design this thing to where there's just nothing interfering with the back of the car and then nothing interfering with the front of the car. Because I wanted to run multiple different bodies on here, swap them out whenever I want to kind of like change it up a little bit here and there, so I'm not just like running one body all the time. So like I want to run the 12C GT3 bodies I have 2 of these. I have 2 P1 GTRs because this is the first one I got a long time ago, but I have a new one that I want to put a wide body kit on. So I'll eventually put that together and paint that one, but that's not going to be for a while anyway. So this one, in the meantime, I obviously like to run on it if I can. So this is the body that I was running on this car before I put the wide body kit on this P1 GTR. And then once I got this thing finished, I swapped over to this one because I like the way this one looks with the wide body kit and the paint job and everything. So that's why I'm running this one for now. But eventually I do want to swap out to other cars. So I kind of want to talk about the other bodies, like the other Mini Z bodies you could actually run on this thing. Now, if you're unfamiliar with Mini Zs, they have different wheelbases. So there's 90 millimeter wheelbase, which usually you have like the Subarus, like the WRX, and some other bodies that are really small for the MA020 all-wheel drive drift cars have like some short body setups on them. And then the 94 millimeter are like the Skylines and the Supras. So they mainly run 94 millimeter wheelbase, and usually these are also narrow compared to these racing bodies, which are 98 millimeter wheelbase, and they're wide bodies, so they're actually wider than like say the Skylines and stuff by a good amount. So there's a narrow setup and a wide setup. Like the MA020s are usually set up for narrow because most of these bodies are narrow, like the Skylines, the Supras, and that kind of stuff. So they're not going to be very wide, and you're not going to be able to run like one of these wide bodies on, say, this MA020. And that's how it is for the Wltoys K969, and pretty much all the versions of this car are 98 millimeter wheelbase, and they're wide body setups. So if I try to run like a Skyline body on here, the wheel wells wouldn't line up correctly because they'd be 4 millimeters off because they're too short, because this is 94 millimeter while this is 98 millimeter. So I couldn't run that, and also it's a narrow body, so you can see how much more distance it sticks out from the sides. So the wheels would be sticking way out, from the body and everything. That just wouldn't fit. So keep that in mind if you're trying to like run different bodies on yours. That some of them are going to be 90 millimeter, some are going to be 94 millimeter, like this guy, or some of them will be 98, and also the narrow versus wide situation you're going to have to figure out as well. Usually when you're buying the bodies, they'll say in the description if they're 94, 98 millimeter, or if they're wide. Like all my MR03 setups, like this is my MR03. This is for racing, not for drifting. This is the original car I got a long time ago with my Corvette body and stuff. So this one, of course, is 98 millimeter with a wide chassis. And then I have another one that I built from the ground up that this one runs 2S on, and it's made for just pure speed. It's almost too fast for its own good. But at first I was trying to, you know, get into racing with these things, and then after I got my my little MA020 version, my all-wheel drive drift car, I pretty much got addicted to this and just started sticking with drifting more than racing. And I actually have a two-wheel drive conversion kit that I pre-ordered, because there's actually a kit now that's, you know, designed specifically for the MA020 to, you know, convert it from all-wheel drive to rear-wheel drive, and it almost has about like 80, almost 90 degree, you know, front steering. So I'm like really looking forward to that, because I'm not a big fan of the all-wheel drive setup, so I would much rather have this in a rear-wheel drive design with more steering angle and get it to drift more like the way this one does. Because once I started drifting a rear-wheel drive with some, you know, some good steering angle on it like this one, it's hard to go back to all-wheel drive drifting, because it's just not the same as like a rear-wheel drive setup, because you can drift much slower and more precise at like a harder angle because of the steering angle, and, you know, and more control with just the back wheels doing most of the work instead of all four wheels working together. It's like you need to drive this thing much faster, and the control is just different than, say, like a rear-wheel drive setup. So I'm just not a fan of all-wheel drive, so I'm actually looking forward to converting this to rear-wheel drive. So stay tuned for that. I'll probably have to do a whole series of builds videos when I get the kit, because it's not put together. I'm gonna have to build it myself, and it's a bunch of stuff. I have to take all the guts out of this car and put it into that conversion kit. It's like a new chassis, basically. The only thing that stays the same is the rear end. So everything else, though, you know, the motor, electronics, the steering servo and all that has to be placed inside that conversion kit. And then I have to basically rebuild the front end and everything and just get rid of this old style chassis and stuff where I get barely any steering angle. So, you know, I'm actually real happy to build that when I get it, but I don't know when that's gonna be here. I pre-ordered it, and they said they'll hopefully be in at the end of November. So maybe they'll start shipping out in December, who knows? I just have to kind of wait around until then. But back to this guy. So if you want to know what kind of bodies and stuff you're running, since I'm running mostly racing bodies on here, because like I said, these racing bodies are usually for the MR03 racing cars. So anything that's 98 millimeter and it's wide set will fit fine. Like GL Racing has some nice bodies too. So I have the Porsche here. The only problem with the GL Racing bodies is that these clips are a little bit too thick. So I'm gonna have to grind down some of the material on these, because I already tried to like get it to fit on these clips, and it won't go into these clips because it's actually too fat, like too thick to get in there. Unlike the Mini Z ones, which are a little bit skinnier material. So like this is just the right thickness to like fit into the clip, while the GL Racing ones, I guess for some reason they just decided to make theirs a little bit thicker. So that's one of the only issues I'm running into with these bodies, is I'm gonna have to kind of grind away 0.5 millimeter of material off of these so they can fit in there. But you can definitely fit these bodies on here. And they have really, especially these, the Porsche definitely has a really good open front wheel well, because that's gonna be one of the biggest issues I'm gonna have with the steering, is the front wheel well having enough space to where the wheel doesn't get caught on the back of the wheel well here. But luckily this Porsche has enough room to where it'll clear. I already kind of messed with it, and it seems like it'll clear just fine on this body. I have the Ferrari as well from GL Racing, and I might need to shave away a little bit of material in here. So I can do all that before I paint it, and then you wouldn't even know that I did that, so I'm not really worried about it. But the ones that are already painted that I kind of want to run in here, I might have to, you know, shave away material and then maybe paint a little bit of black there once I expose the white plastic. I had to shave a little bit away on the P1 GTR. It wasn't too bad, but you know, I shaved that away before I painted it, and it fits perfectly now, and the wheel never gets caught there. It seems like I might have to shave a little bit away on the 12C GT3 bodies right here. I don't have to mess with this little piece here. I just have to shave away plastic on this part of the body, so it's kind of behind there. So if I shave away that material, you won't even know that I did that, because it's hidden by this little piece here that goes out in front. So I'm not really worried about that one. I'll just have to you know, take a razor knife or something and just slowly just eat away the material until the wheel doesn't get snagged anymore. And I was kind of playing with this Senna GTR body, and it almost clears. It just kind of gets snagged a little bit right here on this piece. So That little bit there, I might have to shave that off, and maybe just a tad bit here. So I'll just have to just eat away a little bit of that, and then just put a little bit of black paint or whatever on there. So, and you know, just to not expose the white plastic. And you won't even really realize that I did that there, but that's all I'll have to do to make that work. One of the other issues that you might run into, most of these bodies don't really have any deep light buckets, but if you have a body that has some light buckets in there, like I do want to run one of my F1 GTR bodies on there, and actually the wheel well fits fine. The only issue on this one is that these light buckets are a little bit big and they kind of interfere with the wheel when it starts turning in here. So either I'll have to just not run this one and just leave it the way it is, because I already have the headlights and everything set up in here, so I kind of don't want to have to grind away material unless I have to. I do have a new one that I just haven't got around to painting, so I might just leave the light buckets out of this one, and then just maybe smoke out the glass for the headlight glass here, and then just tape down some LEDs down there and keep it nice and low profile in there. Or grind away, just put the light buckets in and then grind away the material and then paint it afterwards. So you wouldn't even realize that I grinded away any material for the light buckets until the wheel can clear, and then I can probably run this body. So that's something I noticed when I was playing around. And this one probably has the lowest front end out of all of them. So I actually have to get rid of this plastic right here on the glass for the windshield and stuff, just because that kind of interferes a little bit with the suspension tower. And then I think this little weight right here, this third one I have, is kind of hidden this piece, so I might have to just remove the weight on the middle there. And then other than that, it's pretty good. Maybe I'll have to shave a little bit of material here, just maybe like a millimeter or two off of here, which won't really affect the performance of the suspension. I just got to be careful, and I can just kind of grind it at an angle to where I can gain another millimeter of space, and then I can run, say, my F1 GTR body on here. So that's stuff I was looking at to see if I might have to do down the road. This is another GL Racing body. It's the Lamborghini, and these side mirrors always fall off. It's kind of annoying. So this one should be fine, except for this these scoops or whatever you want to call them, the bonnet or whatever on the hood. I'll probably have to, because luckily I didn't actually glue it on or like, you know, melt the plastic on or anything. I just taped it on there. So if I do run it on this body, I can just, you know, take the tape off and then move it out of the way, and then it'll have, you know, open holes here. So it might look cool, kind of like you can see through the hood to the suspension. So that's mostly what I'll have to do to make this guy fit. I might have to shave a little bit of material here. I'm not sure yet, so I'll find that out when I start testing it. And then the last few bodies are the Corvettes. So I have the C8 vet body here. Maybe it'll work, maybe I'll have to shave a little bit there. We'll see. Because I mean, I mainly drift, you know, my RC cars now. I don't really race them anymore, so these racing bodies don't really get any love. So if I can make all my racing bodies fit on my drift car, then, you know, I might as well do that, so I can show the bodies off instead of them just collecting dust on the shelf. So I've used this one before, back before I did the full modification on this thing. This one fit pretty well. There's enough space in the hood and everything to where it wasn't an issue. But now with the maximum steering, I'm not sure if it'll catch here though, so that might be an issue now. Because I didn't have like this full 90-degree steering before when I was running this body on this car. So now I might have to open this up a little bit, and that's probably all I'll have to do to mod this thing to make it work. And then I have one of these old, you know, Aston Martin bodies that I got really cheap off AliExpress a long time ago. It's actually not a bad body. It's definitely a clone of a miniz body. They cloned the Aston Martin body. It already came pre-painted in this green. I just added a bumper wing to it. But I'll probably take off the glass here and paint underneath here black, and paint the lip black, and just basically just add some black accents everywhere, because it's just too much green. There's not any, you know, secondary color. So I'll just, you know, make the areas that need to be black, and then, you know, add headlights and taillights and stuff to this, just like I will with the rest of the bodies as well. But all these bodies are 98mm wide. That's why they all can fit on this car. So I can't run any of them on my MA020, because the way I have it set up is a narrow setup with 94mm bodies. So on this one I run, you know, like R34s, R33, R35. I have some of these, a lot of them I haven't painted yet, so down the road I'm gonna have to paint these. I got a Supra that I need to paint. Actually, I have a body kit for this too. I have a body kit for the R35. So wide body kits for both of those. I have an R32 body, but no body kit for this one. Maybe I'll try to 3D print something myself, but probably not, because I don't really know how to do that. I don't have like a 3D scanner or anything, so I'd have to like try to build it from scratch. I doubt I can, but there's no R32 body kits online that I can find. But yeah, and then I have an R34 body that I have a wide body kit for as well. So all these cars, I will eventually glue on the body kits and paint them. And then once I do the rear wheel drive conversion for the MA020, I'll get these bodies all, fixed up and painted and ready to go on that one, because I'm actually pretty excited to drive that thing after I do that conversion kit. And then all the 94mm bodies will hopefully, I'll get done putting together and painted and start running on that car. And then I'll see how good that does compared to my rear wheel drive setup on my K969 here. So yeah, that's basically all there is to mounting Mini Z bodies on here. I know this video is long, but there's just a lot of information here. If you're gonna try to do this stuff, what bodies are gonna fit, what are gonna work. If you don't know the differences between the Mini Z bodies, this is some information that might be helpful to you before you buy your first car, so you kind of get an idea of what's gonna work and what's not gonna work, because you just can't buy any body and expect it to fit on any chassis. Some chassis are designed specifically for certain bodies, so that's why I wanted to cover all that, just to clarify if you had no idea, or if this is your first one, this will give you a better idea of what you might want to get. So hopefully you guys learned something, and if you have any comments or questions, just leave them down below, and I hope to see you guys in the next one.